samal ajal, kui nemad mängivad, räägib juttu üks maailma parimaid muinasjutuvestjaid, Jean Blake.
And it's a song that the audience is supposed to sing to welcome the storyteller. You understand that? So, I'm going to split you into 3 groups. We're going to have harmonies. You're going to sing. You're going to welcome us. We're going to tell you stories. Does that sound good? Yeah. So the root goes like this. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Give me the rhythm. Yeah, 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 yeah. 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 essences of African Caribbean nature. You're singing and sitting like this. Does it make sense? Makes no sense. So what I want to see is a bit of bit of movement up there. Okay. Okay, we're gonna split the singing differently. Hello, I'm sorry, I forgot all about it. Mwah, sorry. So, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah. My life, so I want to thank you very much. So, you like to hear stories, yes? Yes. So I will tell you some stories. Forget my breath. The first story that I'm going to tell you comes from Kenya. And if you want to hear the story, when I say once upon a time, you say time, time. Once upon a time, time, time. And the way you say time tells me how much you want to hear the story. Simple. Once upon a time, time, time. 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 To imagine that you're far away from this place. Take the lake with you though. The lake is important. But you're far away from this place. You're on the other side of the world. This lake is now called Lake Naivasha. Around Lake Naivasha, there are trees, there's vegetation, there are fish eagles diving into the water. There are wildebeest in their herds, sucking up the lake. There are hippopotamuses swimming, their noses under the water, their eyes ever vigilant. And standing by the side of that lake, rooted deep into the earth, is a tree. The people there call the tree Nyamgondo, son of Ambari, turned into a tree. And this is the story of how it happened. Nyamgondo, son of Ambari, was a fisherman, a bad fisherman, a poor fisherman. Nyamgondo, son of Ambari, lived in a village where he was ridiculed because he was surrounded by fishermen who were good fishermen. Strong fishermen, fine fishermen, with wives, not just one, many wives, and many children. And their fishing nets were always full. And so therefore, their children and wives' bellies were always full. But Nyamgondo was humiliated and ridiculed. And because he was humiliated and ridiculed, he had no wife. He had to take care of himself. And as he always had very little fish to feed himself with, he was a very skinny man. Very thin man. What he could save, he would dig under the ground in his house and bury. A few coins. Not much. But it was all he had that he could call savings. And every day Nyamgondo would put his hands together and he would say to the ancestors, why have you forsaken me? Why? Why not take pity on me? I'm one of your descendants. Please, fill my nets with fish. Please, if I've been a bad man, I will change my ways. Shower me with your blessings. I can't stand the humiliation any longer. But his prayers were never answered. Until one day, Nyamgondo pleaded so hard, he begged, he cried. But the next day, when he went out fishing and cast out his net, he caught what he thought was the biggest haul of his life. But it wasn't a mobile phone. Turn it off, please. Once upon a time. Once upon a time. Once upon a time. He cast out his net and caught what he thought was the biggest haul of his life. He was so happy. Nyamgondo said to himself, my ancestors have answered my prayer. Now I'll be a rich man. He pulled on the string that tightened his fishing net. He pulled it in and he hauled this catch into the bottom of his boat. And when he opened the net, it wasn't a fish. It wasn't a big fish. It was a woman. But it wasn't a beautiful woman. It was the most ugly woman Nyamgondo had ever seen in his life. She was, in French they would say, elle était dégueulasse. She was disgusting. Her breasts hung down to her knees, pendulous, swinging from side to side. No meat, just skin and nipple. Her belly skin joined her breasts. If she had been walking, you would have heard as she walked. Her lips thin and wrinkly. Her mouth, no teeth. The skin on her arms raced down to meet her fingertips. It was so loose and flabby. Same with the skin on her legs. It seemed to race down to meet her toes. So loose and flabby. And to all the women who were going, we're all going in the same direction. Every one of us, okay? And as Nyamgondo unfolded the net, the woman, she looked up at him and she sang, Angbangage bodotodi, Angbangage bodotodi, Bongoro deti wakangbari, Bongoro deti wakangbari, Aiwebe, 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 Angbangage bodotodi, Angbangage bodotodi, Bongoro deti wakangbari, Bongoro deti wakangbari, Aiwebe, Aiwebe. Nyamgondo was about to push her back into the water when she said, Nyamgondo, son of a bar, do not push me back into the water. Nyamgondo said, how do you know my name? She said, I know everything about you, Nyamgondo. I know that you're a very poor man, Nyamgondo. I know that you pray to your ancestors daily, Nyamgondo. I know you have no wife, Nyamgondo. I know your belly is empty, Nyamgondo. I know they ridicule you, Nyamgondo. But Nyamgondo, take me home, marry me, and everything will change. Nyamgondo looked down at this woman with her thin lips and her sagging, swaying breasts. And I didn't mention the backside that hung down to the backs of her knees. And the skin that hung down. And her eyes that were watery and full of cold. And Nyamgonda said, "No, I'll take my chances." She said, "Nyamgonda, son of Ambari, take me home. Marry me. I am your future." Nyamgonda looked at this woman for a long time. She knew his name. She knew his situation. She knew that he'd been praying to the ancestors. And even though it was against his better judgment, Nyamgonda, son of Ambari, said, "All right." And he lifted her out of the fishing net and he sat her next to him. And he rowed back to the shore. He climbed out of the boat and he began to walk. She said, "Nyamgonda, I'm old. Carry me." Nyamgonda went back and he scooped this woman up into his arms. And he could feel her skin hanging over his arm. And she nestled her head into his neck and she looked up at him. Nyamgonda felt sick. But he felt even sicker when the rest of the villagers came out and they said, "Hey, Nyamgonda, who is this woman?" And she said, "I'm his wife." And they said, "Hey, Nyamgonda, I think so bad. I think so bad that you have to marry an ugly old woman." Hey! And the word spread like wildfire beyond the boundaries of that village to the next village and to the one beyond, that Nyamgonda, son of Ambari, had gone mad and had brought home an old woman and called her wife. So of course the next day, when the wedding was being prepared, people came from far to see what was happening. And there she stood in virginal clothes. This old woman wearing virgin's clothes. This old woman with everything sagging and hanging. And there stood Nyamgonda, sheepishly, glancing at her out of the corner of his eye. And the rest of the village laughing behind their hands. And when the man came to perform the ritual and said, "Nyamgonda, you may now kiss your wife," the whole village leant forwards as the old woman pursed her lips. And Nyamgonda gave a cursory peck and then turned and went back to his house, his small house, followed by his virginal bride. And when they entered the house, she said, "Don't worry, Nyamgonda. I won't make you sleep with me tonight." And outside, the people celebrated the wedding. Let's have some celebration. Inside, Nyamgonda tried to make himself as small as possible on the bed. And she nestled up to him. She rested her head on his shoulder. And she said, "Nyamgonda, tomorrow morning you must do something." He said, "What?" She said, "Rent a piece of land from the farmer. Split it into 3 pieces. 1/3, build a corral for cattle. 1/3, turn the land for planting. The next 1/3, make a pen for goats." Nyamgonda said, "Woman, have you gone mad? I'm a fisherman. What am I doing with a field? I have no cattle, I have no goats, I have no land to speak of to plant." She said, "Nyamgonda, son of Ambari, I am your future." And she fell asleep. The next morning, Nyamgonda got up. He dug into that hole in the floor of his house and he took out the coins. And he went to see the local farmer. The local farmer laughed Nyamgonda to scorn. He said, "You want to do what? You want to rent what? You have no cattle, you have no goats, you have no produce to speak of, and you want to rent my land?" Nyamgonda said, "My wife said to do it, and I'm going to do it." He handed over the coins. A kraal was built. The land was turned over, and a pen was built. And then Nyamgondo, he went back and told his wife what he had done. And she got up out of the bed. She left the house. She walked through the village singing, Angbangage bonotodi, Angbangage bonotodi, Bongono de tiwa bangbani, Bongono de tiwa bangbani, Aiwewe, Aiwewe. She stood at the water's edge and she said, cattle, out! Out of the water came long-horned cattle with their dewlaps swinging from side to side, shaking the water from their heads, mooing and lowing as they climbed out of the water. She said, goats out, and the goats came jumping up out of the water, cavorting and bleating as they jumped out of the water. She said, maize out, and shoo, shoo, shoo. Stalks of corn came shooting out of the water. She turned and walked back towards the field. The cattle following, the goats following, the corn walking on its roots as she sang, Angbangage bonotodi, Angbangage bonotodi, Bongono de tiwa bangbani, Bongono de tiwa bangbani, Aiwewe, Aiwewe. The cattle entered the kraal. The goats leapt over the fence and entered the pen. And the corn planted itself in the field. And she, the ugly old woman, she turned on her heels and she walked back towards the house she shared with Nyamgondo, son of Ambari. And as she walked, her breasts began to rise. Her stomach flattened. Her lips became full. Her mouth filled with teeth. The thin grey hair on the top of her head became thick, woolly African hair. The backside that swept against the back of her knees rose up and became a real Africa woman's rump. And she walked through that village with such grace and such poise and such dignity. Her cheeks were filled, her eyes were young and beautiful, her lashes were long and languid, and she smiled as she walked through that village. And the men of that village, they envied Nyamgondo, son of Ambari. She stood in front of that house and she said, house, expand. And that house grew in size. And inside that house was the most beautifully made furniture and beautifully made and woven cushions. And the bed, the marital bed, was covered in skins of animals, soft they were. She entered that house, and there she saw her husband Nyamgondo with his eyes like this and his mouth like this. And she said, Nyamgondo, now we can celebrate our wedding night. And they lay together and they made love. It lasts for 2 days. It lasts for 3 days. 7 days of sweet, delicious, sultry, hot, After 9 months, she pushed and strained and gave birth to a child. And Nyamgondo was happy. He had a beautiful wife, even though she was a little strange. He had a beautiful child. His kraal was filled with cattle, pen filled with goats, field filled with maize. The older men of the village who had daughters, they clamored at his door. Take another wife, take another wife. You need another wife, take another wife. Nyamgondo said, I'm not ready yet. Thank you, but I'm not ready yet. 9 months later, her belly was full again. And another 9 months later, her belly was full again. She gave birth to 3 children in quick succession. And Nyamgondo was happy, but she was tired. And she said, Nyamgondo, some of the men, they have beautiful daughters. Take another wife. Nyamgondo said, are you sure? She said, I'm sure. Take another wife. You can share the burden of being your wife. You can experience the joy of 2 women. Nyamgondo, it is time. So there was another wedding and another celebration. And another 7 days of lovemaking. And more children were born. And Nyamgondo was now one of the richest men in the village. And whenever he went fishing, his nets were full. So he went to market and he sold and he made and he sold and he made. And then he sold cattle if he needed to and he made. And corn and he made. And goats and he made. So he took a 3rd wife. By this time, Nyamgondo, he'd forgotten the source of his good fortune. We're all capable of that, aren't we? We all forget. And Nyamgondo, he became careless. And he would scold his first wife. He would remind her that there were 2 younger women in the house and she should be careful. And she would say, no, you should be careful, Nyamgondo. You should be careful. But he had forgotten why. He'd forgotten why. Nyamgondo took to staying out late at night and drinking palm wine with his friends and turning up at the house drunk and incapable. And she, the senior wife, she would say to the 2 younger wives, take your children, put them to bed. I will stay and I will wait for Nyamgondo. And she would wait patiently. She would wait dutifully for Nyamgondo. When Nyamgondo saw her waiting there, he would feel guilty. And of course, because he felt guilty, he would make accusations. Why are you looking at me like that? If I want to come home late, I'll come home late. She said, Nyamgondo, I didn't say anything. I just wanted to make sure you were safe. Are you all right? Yes, I'm all right. I don't need your concern. Have you eaten? Yes, I've eaten. Fine. And Nyamgondo, lie down and go to bed. Go to sleep. It became a regular occurrence. Nyamgondo would forget himself. And he would chastise his senior wife. He would make her feel small. He'd remind her of where she came from. He would tell her that he knew what she was like underneath her tight, young skin. She said nothing. She would just say, on occasion, Nyamgondo, be careful. Remember where all of this came from. But he had a short memory. One night, Nyamgondo stayed out so late that the sun began to peep over the curtain of the east. And she heard, the senior wife said, he's not coming home. She locked the door against her husband and she went to bed. Some minutes later, there was a pounding on the door. Who dares to lock me out of my own house? Who dares to bar my own gates against me? I am Nyamgondo, son of Mbari. I am the richest man of this village. Who dares to take such liberties with me? She got up out of the bed. She pulled on some clothes. She went to the door. She opened the door. She said, Nyamgondo, I'm sorry. I thought you were staying out. Why should I stay out? Is this not my home? Have you turned me out? She said, no, Nyamgondo. It's just that the sun is shining in the sky. And the cock has crowed many times. I wanted to get some sleep before I began the day. You don't need to sleep, he said. You need to be dutiful to me. How dare you lock the door? She said, Nyamgondo, I'm sorry. He said, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to turn me out of my own house. You're trying to say that all of this wouldn't be here without you. Well, it doesn't matter. I don't need you anymore, said Nyamgondo. I have 2 young, beautiful wives. I don't need an old woman hiding in young women's skins anymore. You can leave. You can go back to where you came from. And you know something? You can take your children with you. They're products of magic, just like yourself. I'm not comfortable having them around. Take them with you. Go back to where you came from. She said, Nyamgondo, you're drunk. You don't know what you're saying. He said, I know exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying, I divorce you. She said, don't say it twice. He said, I divorce you. She said, Nyamgondo, do not say it 3 times. He said, I divorce you. She said, fine. You have spoken, Nyamgondo. I will leave. Good, he said, and he threw himself down on the bed, and he was gone. You know what that feels like. When you're so drunk, you're just gone. The next morning, Nyamgondo, or rather later that morning I should say, Nyamgondo was awoken by Angmangage Bonotoni, Angmangage Bonotoni, Bongo no Detiwa Banbani, Bongo no Detiwa Banbani, Aiwewe, Aiwewe. She was taking off her clothes and laying them at the foot of the bed. And as she did, the breasts became longer and longer. There was no flesh, just skin. The belly came down to meet the knees and the breasts. The backside down to meet the backs of her knees. The teeth fell out of her head. The lips became shriveled and thin. The eyes became glassy and old. The hair fell out in clumps on the ground. The skin became long and stringy and baggy. Nyamgondo heard, but he did not see. He turned over. She walked through the village and to the field. She said, cattle out. Goats out. Maize out. And the cows, the longhorn cattle, they broke through the fence of their crowd and mooing and lowing, they followed her through the village. The goats jumped over the fence and they followed her. And the corn pulled itself up out of the earth and followed her on filthy roots. She walked past the house. She said, house, shrink, children, out. The children came running out of the house. The house began to shrink around Nyamgondo, and that woke him up. He sat up in his bed. He said, what is going on? Wife? But she did not answer. He saw her clothes at the foot of the bed. He saw the clumps of hair on the ground. He said, wife? She did not answer. The 2 younger wives were crying inside. They couldn't understand what was happening. Nyamgondo, he grabbed his walking stick and he began to follow her. He could see where she was going. He said, you! Where do you think you're going? Hey, come back here with my possessions. But she was walking towards the water and she was singing her song of transformation. Cattle in, goats in, corn in, children in. The children jumped into the water, following the cattle and the goats and the corn. Nyamgondo followed behind. He said, I'm sorry. I take it back. Please forgive me. But she jumped into the water and was gone. Nyamgondo, son of Ambare, walked around and around and around the lake. He said, no, she'll come back. She'll forgive me and she'll come back. I know she will. She'll think better of it and she'll come back. She'll return my children to me. And she'll return my possessions to me. And he stood there and he waited. He waited not 1 day or 2 days or 3 days. He waited 7 days before his wives came and begged him to return and he would not. He waited a further 7 days. His children came and begged him to return. He would not. The villagers came and they begged him to return and he would not. He stood there and he stood there and he stood there. And his feet, they began to elongate, and his toes, they dug down into the ground and became roots. His hair became thick and knotted and became branches. The wind blew against his skin and his skin became bark. His hand melded into that walking stick. He became a tree. The people at Lake Naivasha say there's a man standing by the lake, looking into the water, trying to find his wife. They call him Nyambondo, son of Ambari, turned into a tree. And you've just heard his story. So, let's sing. The song goes like this. Amanuwe, 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 Siea o, Amanuwe, Siea o, Amanuwe, 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 Amanuwe. Let's sing it together. You ready? Amanuwe, 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 Siea o, Amanuwe, Siea o, Amanuwe, 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 Siea o. Now I think you can harmonize. I have a feeling you like singing, and I have a feeling that you can probably harmonize. So, find your harmony, sing freely, own the song, it belongs to you now. Are you ready? Yeah. Let's go. Amanuwe.
Siea
a long green smock shirt. This hunter went out every day and he brought enough meat for everyone in the village. He was loved and he was respected. He had a secret though. Sewn into his long green shirt were protective words. Words that protected him when he was in the forest. Hunter's magic. The only thing that could take away this protection was a worn down broom touched by a woman's hand. If that came against him or his long green smock shirt, it was over for him. And he would become as weak as a child. One day the hunter was out in the forest. He was up in a tree. He was looking down. There was a watering hole. There were buffalo. There was a buffalo mother and her calf. They were both drinking. He had to make a decision. The mother or the child? The mother or the child? He was a hunter. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't evil. He was doing his job. But should he go for the tender meat or the mature meat? Tender meat. He drew back the bowstring and shoo! He let the arrow fly. The mother, like all mothers, sensed when her child was in danger. The buffalo jumped in front of the calf. The arrow pierced her heart and she fell dead on the forest floor. The buffalo calf scurried off into the bushes and watched wide-eyed as this thing on two legs jumped down out of the tree and yelped, "Yeah!" This thing on two legs walked towards her mother. The thing on two legs took out a knife, a big knife. The thing on two legs cut off her mother's head. The thing on two legs quartered her mother's body. The thing on two legs pushed her mother's body into a bag. Then the thing on two legs threw the bag over his shoulder and walked out of the forest. The buffalo calf came out from the bushes and saw where her mother's blood had been spilt. The buffalo calf saw that the thing on two legs had left an imprint in the forest floor. The buffalo calf stood up on its hind legs, transformed itself and became a 7-year-old girl. The 7-year-old girl measured her foot in the hunter's footprint. And she said, "I'm too young to take revenge. But I will come here every day on the anniversary of my mother's death. And when I'm old enough, I will find him and I will kill him." So she took dry leaves and she took grass and she covered over the footprint. She changed herself back into a calf and she went out off to find the herd, hoping that one of the buffalo mothers would take care of her. And they did. And every year on the anniversary of her mother's death, she came back, changed herself into a girl, measured her foot. She was still too young. And this went on until she was 16 years old. When she was 16 years old, she measured her foot and saw that she was quite grown and she was old enough. And so she left the forest. She left the forest and she walked. She walked for a year and a day in search of this man. She could remember him vividly, as though it was yesterday. He wore a long green smock shirt and he killed her mother. She would find him and she would kill him. And so she walked from village to village to village for a year and a day. And on the last day of the year and a day, she came to a village. It was a bustling market. She could hear the people calling out their wares. Children running in and out of their parents' legs. Hunters haggling over skins and their exploits in the forest. And there was one. He wore a long green smock shirt. He was arguing over the price of an antelope skin. She recognized him immediately. She knew that face. Her blood ran cold. If you had cut her then, you wouldn't have found blood, you would have found ice water in her veins. That's how angry she was. she turned on her heels. She left the village. Because on the outskirts of the village, she'd noticed that an old woman lived. And she went to the old woman and she said, "Old woman, I'm young and I'm in love. And I want to catch this man. Make me beautiful." And the old woman said, "But you're beautiful already." She said, "Make me so beautiful that he cannot resist me." And the old woman said, "Very well." She gave her a calabash. This is a calabash. She gave her a calabash and she said, "Go and milk my goat." She went and she milked the goat and she came back with goat's milk. The old woman left her house and she went to a tree where there was a bee's nest. And she put her hand inside and she pulled out fresh honey in the comb. And she threw it into the goat's milk. She mixed it together. Then she said to the young woman, "Take off your clothes." She took off her clothes. And the old woman poured the goat's milk and honey all over her body. And she massaged it into her hair, into her face, into her shoulders, into her breasts, into her belly, into her back, into her legs. She massaged her with the goat's milk and honey. And then she went and she brought fresh, cold water. And she doused her in cold water. And it was as though every spot, every mark, every blemish, every imperfection was washed away from her skin. She was shining with beauty. There are no mobile phones in Burkina Faso in my story. Okay? Eel! 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 She was shining in beauty. And the old woman said, "Oh my God, you're beautiful. Wait there," she said. And she went and she found a piece of indigo blue cloth. And she wrapped the indigo blue cloth around the young woman's body. She said, "Oh my God, sit down. Let me do your hair." She sat the young woman between her legs and she twisted and plaited and plaited and twisted her hair into the most beautiful style. And then she said, "Listen, if he does not love you after today, I have a grandson. I am sure he would love to take you as a wife." The young woman said, "Thank you, grandmother, but I know exactly who I want to marry." She left. She left the old woman's house and she walked back through the village. This time when she walked through the village, people stopped and they stared and drew in their breath because she was so exquisitely beautiful. She walked with poise and grace. She moved like a queen. She walked until she came to where the hunter was still arguing about whether or not he should sell the antelope skin or give it away. She stood in front of him. She fixed him with a look. She took his breath away. He gave away the antelope skin. And he said, "Do I know you?" She said, "No, not yet." She was bold. He liked that. And he said, "When you say not yet, what do you mean?" She said, "I'm a traveler. I've been on the road for a long time, and I'm seeking hospitality. And I've been told that amongst the men of this village, apart from the chief himself, you are one of the most powerful and well known. Is this true?" And he said, "Well, perhaps." She said, "Then you are the man I'm looking for. I seek protection, and I seek hospitality, and I choose you to be my protector. Will you allow me to stay in your house for 3 days and 3 nights, as is the allotted time, and then I will be on my way?" He said, "Of course, of course. No question. In fact, you will be helping me as much as I will be helping you. I live with my aged mother. And there are times when I'm out in the bush hunting and I worry about her. If you could keep an eye on her for those 3 days, it would make me very happy." "Of course," she said. "Lead the way." And he led her through the village. And of course, all the other men were filled with jealousy because she was beautiful. And he was puffed up. His chest was high. He strutted. He walked to his house. He said, "Mama, we have a guest." Keep going, son. "Mama, we have a guest." The old woman was sitting, sucking on her clay pipe. She looked up at this beautiful young woman, but she had seen what her son had not seen. She had looked into her eyes and had seen hatred written across them in big red letters. She said, "My son, a word please." "Who is this woman?" He said, "It's a guest. She's a traveler. I found her today, or rather she found me. She came specifically to ask me for protection. She will stay here for 3 days and 3 nights, and then she will be on her way." Said the old woman. But if you don't understand that, in the Caribbean and in Africa, if someone goes, it means for goodness sakes. Yeah? You recognize it. Yeah? Should I teach you how to do it? Yes. It's called sucking your teeth. Yeah? You suck your back teeth. But you have to do it with attitude. You can't just suck your teeth like that. Yeah? You have to go. Yeah? No, not so long. Yeah? That's what you're doing. You're going like this. That's not it. Yeah? You have to put an M at the beginning. But you have to make it short. Listen. Very good. That was expert teeth sucking. But now, what you have to do is you have to think, "You bloody fool," at the same time, yeah? That's what makes it work. Very good. Let me hear it. Yeah, I think we have a winner here. Sorry. And so, the old woman said, "Idiot. You only saw the outside, but I looked into the inside. This woman means you no good. This woman means to hurt you, my son. Send her away. Immediately. Take my foolish advice. Send her away." He said, "I can't send her away. How can I send her away? I've already accepted to have her in the house for 3 days and 3 nights. She must stay." The old woman said, "Well, keep her away from me. I know what she has in her heart. I don't trust her." So the young woman stayed in the house for 3 days and 3 nights. She made herself indispensable to the hunter. She went and collected firewood. She cooked. She cleaned the house. She washed his clothes. The old woman had nothing to do but sit there and go. There's another one, which basically says the same thing. And for 3 days and 3 nights, the young woman tried everything to ingratiate herself on the old woman, but the old woman would have nothing to do with her. But the hunter was falling in love. See, he said it the right way. How do you say it? Love. Yeah? He wasn't just falling in love, he was falling in love. Proper love. You know that love, that one? Yeah? Not just that one, not just that one. That one. She had him. He was lost. The way she walked, the way she talked, the way she sang, everything about him. He was gone. And after 3 days, when she decided that she was going to leave, he said, "Where are you going?" She said, "The period of hospitality is past. It's time for me to return, to continue on my journey." He said, "Don't go." She said, "Why should I stay?" He said, "Because." She said, "Because what?" He said, "Listen, you know." She said, "No, I don't know." "Tell me." "Because what?" Because if you leave, I'll be lost without you. And what do you mean by that? She said, "I mean, I'll be lost without you because when you breathe, I breathe. And when you smile, I smile. And I want to be beside you when you sleep. And I want to be beside you when you wake. And I want to take you in my arms. And I want to hold you close. And I want to call you wife." She said, "Really? Why?" And he said, "Because I love you." She said, "You love me? Really? Truly? Do you?" He said, "I do. I'd do anything for you." Tell me where your family are, he said. Tell me where they are. I can pay the bride price. I'll go and speak to your father now. Where's your mother? I'll go and find her now. And at that moment, she began to cry. He said, why are you crying? Have I offended you? She said, no. My mother was murdered when I was 7 years old, and I don't know my father. He said, I'm sorry. And he took her in his arms and held her close. And she wept tears. They were tears of anger and rage. And he held her close and he rocked her from side to side. And he said, no one will ever hurt you again. I promise no one will ever hurt you again. I don't care if you have nobody. I will marry you now exactly as you are. And she said, all right, I will marry you. And he told his mother. What did his mother do? She said, are you mad? This woman came to our house 3 days ago. Are you mad? You want to do what? You want to marry a stranger you met on the road. You don't know her people. You don't know where she came from. But you want to marry her. Are you mad? Send her away. I'm telling you now, my son, this woman means you no good. You cannot marry her. He said, mother, I love you very much. But this is the woman I aim to make my wife. I will marry her with or without your blessing. I'm a man now. I don't have to listen to you anymore. She said, fine, fine. You're a man now. Do what you want to do, but don't expect to see me at your wedding. And so it was that the other women of the village, they shunned him also. Your mother isn't going, I'm not going. Your mother isn't cooking, I'm not cooking. Your mother isn't dancing, I'm not dancing. So it was the men who took care of things for him. The tailor made his wedding clothes and his wife's wedding clothes. They cooked for him. They played music. There was a wonderful celebration at the wedding. The women, they ululated. Now, some of you were at the Iranian event today, so you know how to ululate. Let me hear you. Yeah, we need more, yeah? Strong, passionate, and those of you who don't know, there's two ways to do it. There's his way and my way. My way is just to go, yeah, 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 yeah. But make it high pitch, a joyous noise. Are you ready? Go! They couldn't help themselves. A beautiful woman was being married. And even though they didn't go to the wedding, they had to make that sound of jubilation. 3 days and 3 nights of love naked. And everything in the house went back to normal. The husband strung a piece of cord across the one room he shared with his mother, and he hung a curtain over the cord. He slept on one side with his wife, his mother slept on the other side. Every day he would go out hunting. He and his friends, they would come back. The wife was very observant. She noticed that when he went hunting, he had not a mark on his body when he came back. The other hunters, there would be a scratch here or a mark there, a cut, a bite. Nothing from him, nothing. She said, this man has magic. This man has protection. If I can find out the source of this magic, if I can find out his secret, I can kill him. So at night, she would take to whispering into his ear, tell me, darling, beautiful one, what is it? What is it that protects you? All the other hunters, they go hunting. They come back with marks on their skin. Your skin is clear and fresh. Why? He made a promise never to share his secret with anyone. And so he would hum and ha and, well, it's just that. And on the other side of the curtain, the old woman would be listening. And she would say, hey, either make me a grandmother or go to sleep. None of this talk, 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 talk. And so it was that the young bride had to become clever. Promise to who? I promised my mother. Oh, you promised your mother? Why didn't you marry your mother then? Huh? Who am I? Am I not your wife? You promised your mother. I'm your wife. You can share things with your mother, but not with your wife. This is unheard of. Suppose something was to happen to you, and they came to me and they asked me certain questions. I wouldn't be able to answer. But fine, she said. You wanted to marry your mother, that's who you should have married. Don't tell me your secret. She turned her back. Some of you have experienced this. She turned her back. And he said, my darling. She said, don't. He said, sweetheart. She said, I'm not your sweetheart. Your mother is your sweetheart. Leave me alone. He lay there and he tossed and he turned and he ummed and he ahed and he questioned himself, and finally he said, all right, I'll tell you. She said, tell me or don't tell me, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. He said, listen then, I will tell you. The green shirt that I wear when I go hunting, the green shirt is covered in protected words and talismans. That's what protects me when I'm out in the forest. That is my hunter's magic. If, when I'm out in that shirt, a woman was to touch me with a broom, a worn down broom, I would be in big trouble. I'd become as weak as a baby. She said, see? No harm has come. You told me your secret, you shared it with me, all is well. Now let's go to sleep. Now, after they had married, his mother had come to him one day and said to him, my son, listen, you've married this woman. She's your wife now. I have no say in your life. But I want you to keep these things with you. She gave him a small bag. In the bag was an egg, a stone, and a gold ring. She said, keep them with you at all times. And whenever you go hunting, always take your spear. You promised me. And he promised her, but dismissed it. She, the mother, had put these things in a small leather bag and hung it around his neck, so he would never forget. The morning after he revealed his secret, he got up. You know what it's like when you've unburdened yourself of something? You feel released, you feel free. He looked at his wife, she was beautiful. And now she knew everything about him. He was whole, everything was complete. He got up, he washed himself, he dressed himself, he spoke to his creator, and then he ate. Then he began to prepare the poison for the tips of his arrows, cleaned his rifle, put all his arrows in the quiver, made sure his bowstring was tight, put everything together, looked at his spear, but I don't need that today, and he left. The wife had not been sleeping. She'd been awake all night. She'd been plotting and planning all night. As soon as he was gone through the door, she got up. Naked as she was, she grabbed a broom from the corner of the house, a fresh broom. She stood outside the house and she began to sweep. She was sweeping and sweeping and sweeping. Inside the house, the old woman was asleep. She was awoken by the sound of this. Shh, 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 shh. She said, what's that noise? She called, daughter-in-law, what's that noise? The young woman didn't answer because she was sweeping. Shh, 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 shh. The old woman, she got up, she tied a cloth around her. She came and she stood in the doorway of the house, and she saw her daughter-in-law as naked as the day she was born, and she was shh, 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 shh. And the old woman knew instantly that her son had shared his secret. My God, she said, what am I going to do? The old woman, she went back into the house. She sat down. She wrung her hands. She stood up. She sat down. She walked up and down. She said, what am I going to do? This woman means to kill my son. And then she thought, I know. She went outside and she said, daughter-in-law, I'm thirsty. It's time for my tea. Go and collect firewood and make a fire. I want to drink my tea. The young woman said, collect your own firewood, old woman. I'm sweeping. The old woman, she went back inside. She sat down. She said, my God, what am I going to do? My son is sure to die today. I know. She went back outside and she said, fetch water. Let's do some laundry. He will be back later. It would be nice to have all the chores done and then you and he can spend time together, making me a grandmother. She said, fetch your own water, old woman. I'm sweeping. She was sweeping and sweeping and the broom was being worn down and the old woman didn't know what to do. She tried a third time. She said, I don't feel well. My shoulder hurts. Please, massage my shoulder. Massage your own shoulder, old woman. I'm busy. I'm sweeping. All day she stood there, sweeping, sweeping, sweeping. The sun was now setting. It was a blood-red sun. Over the horizon came the hunter, carrying a baby elephant on his head, a dukia over his shoulder, and a hare tied to his foot. He was walking towards his house. He was walking through the village. He was greeting everybody. Everybody was looking at him strangely. Did you know your wife was standing outside the house naked? Your wife? Naked. He looked up and he saw her standing there. At first, she looked so beautiful in that blood-red sun that he forgot. And then he remembered, she's naked. He threw down the baby elephant. He kicked off the hair, threw down the dukia, and he ran to his wife. And he said, what are you doing? Cover yourself. She said, don't touch me. He said, what's the matter with you? She looked at him with such hatred. She said, murderer. He said, what do you mean murderer? She said, you killed my mother. I've never even met your mother, he said. What do you mean? When she said, you killed my mother when I was 7 years old, and today you will pay. And she threw that broom at him, and the broom hit him hard in the chest. And at that moment, he felt all his power leaving him. He began to feel as weak and as feeble as a baby. He stood there. It was as though someone had poured ice-cold water over him, and he could feel his power dripping from the ends of his fingers. And then, to make matters worse, it began to happen. The transformation. The woman he had loved, the woman he had taken to his bed, the woman he had made love to on many nights, was now transforming in front of his eyes. Out of the top of her head came long, sweeping horns. She went down on her hands and knees. She no longer had long, slender fingers. She had hooves. Her back extended, her rump extended. Out of the back unfurled a tail. Her nose broadened, her lips broadened, and in front of him was a buffalo. And he was transfixed. She was pawing the ground with her hooves. She was getting ready to charge when a voice woke him from his reverie. Run! It was his mother. And he began to run. And they say that when a woman knows her child is in danger, she finds the strength of 10 men. And this woman was no different. She was now running. She was running. This old woman was running beside her son. She was running, 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 running. And she said to her son, my son, the things I gave you on the day of your wedding, do you have them now? And he said, yes. She said, give them to me. He tore the bag from his neck and he gave the bag to his mother. His mother took out an egg and she threw it over her shoulder. The egg hit the ground and water, the sea, separating mother and son from the buffalo. But no sea water was as salt as the tears she cried on the day her mother died. And she swam through the sea and she continued to chase them. She ran and she ran and she ran and she ran. The mother, she fished into the bag, she took out the stone. She threw the stone over her shoulder, it hit the ground and a mountain range separating mother and son from the buffalo. But no mountain was as hard as her heart. And she charged right through that mountain and she kept chasing. The mother, she fished into the bag and she pulled out the gold ring. She threw the ring over her shoulder. It hit the ground and fire. A wall of fire separated mother and son from the buffalo. But no fire was as hot as the hatred and pain she felt on the day her mother was killed. And she ran straight through the flames. And she kept chasing. And the mother, she said, my son, that's all of the gifts used. Where is your spear? He said, She said, where is your spear? He said, I left it at home. And she said, and the old woman, she turned herself into a spear. Her head became the spear head. Her bony arms and legs and body became the shaft of the spear. The spear said to the hunter, throw me over your shoulder. The hunter grabbed the mother, the spear, the protector, and he threw her over his shoulder. And she flew like a bird. She flew like a bird, concentrating all the love she had for her son into her spear head. She flew like a bird towards the heart of the buffalo, and she went straight through. And the buffalo fell dead. Dead on the ground. And the hunter didn't know what to do. Didn't know whether to go up or down, right, left, in, out. He didn't know what to do. And there was his mother's voice. son, please. He turned and he walked back towards his mother's voice. Back towards this thing that was half woman, half buffalo. He walked back towards his mother, who was smeared from head to toe in the buffalo's blood. He scooped up his mother and he took her home. And he bathed his mother. From head to toe, he bathed his mother. And he dressed his mother. And he and his mother, and they sat. They talked. They talked as they had never spoken before, from the heart. And after that, there was a new respect between them. There were nights when he awoke in fright at the memory of the buffalo woman. That soon passed. And after a time, he fell in love. Or rather, he fell in love. Sweet love. And this time, his mother did approve. And that is the end of that story. What time is it? You don't want to run it over. What time is it? Tell the truth to Auntie Jan. What time is it? 9:15. Yeah. 9:15. In that case, I will tell you a finishing story. Is that all right? Yes! All good things must come to an end. I'll tell you a finishing story. You want to sing? Yeah. Want to sing? Yes. Someone said no. Oh my God. I'll tell you a story, and then if there's time, we'll sing at the end, okay? If you want to hear this story, when I say ho, you say hey, ho, hey, ho, hey, ho, hey. A man was walking across the Sahara. Keep going, sir. Behind him, 3 paces behind, was his wife. She carried the baby tied on her back. She was a dutiful wife. She wasn't a challenging woman in any way. She had her secret powers. They were for her. So she thought. As they crossed the desert, after many, many days of walking, they came to some bush, finally. Up ahead, the husband spied some bush cattle. It'd been a long time since he tasted meat. He turned to his wife and he said, "Wife, I want to eat meat. You have the power to change yourself into a leopardess. Take the baby off your back, transform into a leopardess, chase down that herd of bush cattle, catch one, bring it back, turn yourself back into a woman, skin it, clean it, cook it, and prepare it for me the way I like it." She said, "But husband, you know how to hunt. Look, you have your spear, you have your bow, your arrow. I'll stay here with the baby. You hunt. Hunt the meat and I will do everything you ask." He said, "Listen, I am your husband. If I tell you to hunt, you hunt. If I tell you to change into a leopardess, you change. If I tell you to prepare the meat, you prepare. If I tell you to cook, you cook." My friend said, "There's the rules." He said that today. There's the rules. They're the rules. You do as you're told. That's your job in life. Do as you're told. She said, "My husband, are you sure?" He said, "Don't question me. Do as you're told." She said, "Very well." She untied the baby. She laid the baby gently on the ground. And then the woman, her eyes became the eyes of a leopard. The woman, this woman, her teeth became the teeth of a leopard. And this woman, her nails became the claws of a leopard. And this woman, her skin became the skin of a leopard, and her heart became the heart of a leopard. turned to her husband, she looked at him and she said,